So one of the first things that we need to do is we need to chop the nuts. And I can tell you, if you want to save money, don't buy chopped nuts because you're going to end up chopping them anyway because they're never chopped to the correct size. In my baklava I use walnuts and pecans, but others have used cashews, pistachios, Brazil nuts, just about any type of nut you can imagine. Another thing I can caution you is don't use a food processor because typically that chops it too small, and then when the nuts are in the oven it has a tendency to taste burnt, and you don't want your baklava to taste burnt, you want it to taste amazing. So I recommend just chopping it small into little pieces like this. So the next thing we need to do is prepare the table, and I heard about this and I thought this was genius. Phyllo dough has two enemies, moisture and dryness. So we put down plastic wrap and then we put the phyllo dough inside and then cover it again over with the plastic wrap and then put a damp cloth on top of that. That way it keeps the phyllo dough moist but not too moist and dry but not too dry. And it works out perfect. Next, we prepare the phyllo dough. Now, phyllo dough is a finicky beast. It is sometimes hard to deal with. The quality has kind of gone down regardless of the manufacturer, so it does take a little bit of patience, but you want to lay it out flat out on the plastic wrap. Then you want to cover the phyllo with a plastic wrap and the kitchen towel to keep it moist, but dry. Next we need to make the mixture that goes over the nuts, which is we use half a cup of sugar. We use 1 teaspoon. I tend to go a little generous on this. I don't even measure with a teaspoon anymore. I just sprinkle enough on the top to see that it's kind of covered. Then I use a half teaspoon of clove and a half teaspoon of nutmeg. And then I actually shred fresh lemon zest, and I reserve the lemon because I'm going to need the lemon for the syrup, which we're going to make a little bit later. Then we just shake it up real good to make sure that it gets mixed really well for our baklava. Now for the part that takes the longest, we are going to take a pound of butter. Use actual butter, not margarine. Margarine does not work nearly as well, nor does it taste nearly as good. We'll use unsalted butter, and we butter our cookie sheet, and we do two sheets of phyllo at a time, You put down 2 sheets, you butter, 2 sheets butter, 2 sheets butter, and then you start putting nuts. I do recommend 2 people doing this part because it can be really hard for one person. I did do it one person for a long time, but with 2 people it's more fun and it's faster, and the phyllo dough doesn't get dried out as fast. Once you have 6 layers, so that's 3 sets of 2 sheets of phyllo dough down and buttered, then you want to start putting the nuts. I usually try to use some type of guide along the edges. It doesn't always work, and you know what, it really doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things, but you want to try to keep the nuts as much on the phyllo dough as you can. You want to put a fairly thin layer of nuts, and then you're going to want to take the mixture that you put over the nuts, which was the sugar, cinnamon, clove, nutmeg, and lemon zest. You want to kind of drizzle that over it. Try not to go too heavy. It tends to be very rich anyway, but you want to put a little bit over it. Next, you want to put 4 layers of phyllo, 2 at a time. So you'll put 2 on top, butter it, put 2 on top of those 2 and butter it, and then we'll put another layer of nuts. So next we're putting that next layer of nuts. Again, you want to make a nice thin layer. You don't want to make it too thin because you want it to be, you know, really nutty so that people really enjoy it. And then you're also going to put the sugar, cinnamon, clove, nutmeg, lemon zest mixture again. I do tend to put a little bit extra on the top layer of the nuts of the mixture. It just tastes so good. Now for this next phase, we're going to just start stacking 2 at a time of the phyllo dough. Put down 2, butter, put down 2, butter, put down 2, butter. And you want to get a nice thick layer. I tend to usually put a total of 10 to 12 sheets on top, just 2 at a time, buttering. Oh, it's just so good. Next is the part that can be the most frustrating, and that is cutting the baklava. You do have to cut it before you put it in the oven. Don't make the mistake of trying to cut it after it's been in the oven. It's going to crumble all to pieces. So you do need to cut it before it goes into the oven. I have used multiple types of knives and everything. This pastry knife is the one that usually works best for me. But what happens is, because the top layer is also buttered, is that the phyllo dough likes to stick to the knife, so you have to constantly be pushing it back off and putting it back onto the phyllo dough, but it does like to stick to the knife. Just be patient. Some people like to be extra fancy and make theirs diamond shape. I go with a more traditional triangle shape. So after you cut it into squares, you're going to want to cut it diagonally, and this is the part where it likes to stick to the knife a lot. If you do it my way, then it should eventually look like this. Don't ask me how I did it, but I forgot to show the baklava going into the oven, but you just want to put it in the oven. It should be preheated to 325, and you're going to bake it for about an hour and a half. And then that last half hour is when you're going to work on the syrup. So let's talk about the syrup for a minute. So in the syrup, you're going to take 1 cup of water, 1 cup of sugar, you're going to take a ½ cup of honey, and we're going to freshly grind or freshly juice a lemon. It says 2 tablespoons, but I typically go a little over that. I think about 3½ tablespoons is actually better. And you're going to mix all that together, heat it up on the stove, put it on a simmer for that last half hour while the baklava is finishing up. A little bit of baklava history while this syrup is being made is that the Hebrews and the Greeks have been arguing for centuries over who came up with baklava first. The Hebrews say they did, the Greeks say they did, but at least 100 years, a century or so, prior to it showing up in Hebrew or Greek culture, it was Turkish. It wasn't that much like the baklava that we have today. It was originally made with pistachios and rose water instead of the pecans, walnuts, and honey like we know today. So just a little bit of baklava history for you. There are actually 2 types of baklava. There's like the one that I call like the soggy baklava, and then there's the crisp baklava. We're making the crisp kind. The soggy kind of goes inside of a baking dish and they pour the syrup over it. One thing I learned to do a long time ago is to invert the cookie sheet so that when I pour the syrup over it, it drifts down and it doesn't stay in the baklava. So it just kind of like puts a nice syrup flavor on the baklava without making it soggy. At this point, the kitchen smells amazing because I can smell the baklava that's just about to come out of the oven, and I can smell the syrup. And in a moment, we're just going to merge these 2 together. There is a debate over hot syrup over cold baklava, cold syrup over hot baklava. I like hot syrup over hot baklava. It tends to give the best flavor, at least to me. And there you have it. It's not as hard as people think. Oh, but it's just so good. Enjoy.